just to update, I actually have 8 kids. Yeah, a little round of applause. This is number 8, doesn't feel left out. You need to acknowledge it. Thank you very much. Hey, great to be here. I came in from St. Paul, Minnesota this afternoon. Actually, I was contacted last year. I was living full-time in Naples to do this event. I said, sure, why wouldn't I just drive up the road and do it? The circumstances changed. We moved back to Minnesota last summer, and then a few months ago, I knew it was on my calendar, and Mike and Bruce reached out and said, we're still good to go for Faith and Ale. I said, absolutely. I can't think of a better reason to, plus it's winter, so to get out of Minnesota is a good deal. But I can't think of a better place to be or a better thing to do to be with fellow Catholic brothers and talk about our faith. And I don't want to stand up here and pretend like I'm some expert, all right, on the Catholic faith, or I'm perfect. Obviously I'm not. I learned a long time ago to stick with what you know. All right, I was actually went away to college and practiced football for a few weeks. We had a training camp, and then it was time to register for classes. So a bunch of freshman football players were over here in the corner locker room trying to figure out, oh yeah, that's right, we got to go to school here. Like, what classes are we going to register for? And one of the upperclassmen comes by and he says, hey, you guys should take this class. It's called the Bible. I was like, the Bible? There's a class at Harvard called the Bible? I said, yeah, so why should you take that class? He goes, wow, this old guy's been teaching it forever. And the whole class is based on the final, and the final is only one question. And it's the same question every year. It's like, great. But what's the question? He said, the question, all you have to do is to discuss Paul's travels. It's like, all right, great. So like 20 of us register for the class, walk in the first day, grab the syllabus. It's this huge lecture hall. Old guy gets up there, tells you about the classes. Your whole grade's going to be based on the final. We're like, great. Class ends, we left. We never went back. So the night before the final, we all get together, study up on Paul's travels, spend a good hour. Felt like we had a good grasp of the material. Went to bed. It's important to get a good night's rest before a test. Wake up, get a good breakfast, did all that. Walked into the final feeling good. Feeling real good. Sit down, the old guy gets up there. Says, for the final, there will only be one question. The question is, I want you to write an essay, I want you to critique Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. You want to talk about panic setting in? My first thought was, how am I going to tell my parents who sent me to 12 years of Catholic school that I failed a class called the Bible, right? I'm sweating like the back of your knees, racking my brain trying to go back, the nuns, trying to go, Sermon on the Mount. After about 20, 25 minutes, I'm spent. I got nothing left to put down on the paper, so I was like, well, I'm not going to waste my time to just sit here. So I got up, shamefully walked to the front of the room, and turned in my blue book, and walked out with my head down, and a bunch of my teammates followed suit. So we went back to the student union to sit around and commiserate and say, what are the chances the year we take the class and changes the question, and what are we going to do? Are we going to be eligible for spring ball? I don't know. What happens? And we're there for like an hour and a half, just commiserating, and thought everyone was there, but there was one guy missing. He comes walking in. It's like an hour and a half later. His name was Chris Schaefer, but one of our teammates, but we never called him Chris. We called him the Tick, because he was 5'9", 300 pounds. He just kind of walked like a giant tick. That's just how football people talk to each other, right? It's a term of endearment. And we said, Tick, where you been? And we were shocked. Like, I just got out of the final. Tick played D-line, so it was like, he ain't that smart, right? We're like, how did you just get out of the final? We studied Paul's travels. It was on the Sermon on the Mount. What were you doing there? It's always easy. I just said, who am I to critique Jesus' Sermon on the Mount? Let me tell you about Paul's travels. So, you just got to stick with what you know, all right? That's all I'm going to do. I was raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, and when I was growing up, I just assumed everybody was white, Irish, and Catholic. That's all St. Paul, Minnesota is. We got Catholic churches and Irish bars. I mean, that's about it. A very homogenous place. One kid grew up across the street, he was Jewish, didn't really get that, but that's just what I thought. I went to Catholic school, and I went to Mass every Sunday. My dad was in a pre-seminary high school, went to the seminary for a while. Because lucky for me, he dropped out. And we never once missed Mass. We would go up to the cabin in the middle of nowhere in northern Minnesota. I mean, we didn't have electricity or running water or anything. These places, we camp. And on Sunday mornings, we'd drive into town, and we'd pull up in front of the Catholic church 10 minutes before Mass started, like in a town we'd never been in. It was like, this is obviously pre-Google and everything. Like, how does he know when? He's got the Mass schedule for every church in the state, you know? It's amazing. Never, ever, ever missed Mass. Went to Catholic school, taught by the nuns, you know, it was great. And then I went away to college. And when I went away to college, my parents, the way it was, it took me to the airport. Woke up my brothers early, they were mad they had to get up early. Went to the airport, I had 2 duffel bags, they dropped me off and said, you know, we'll come see you when we can. And that was it, I went away. And showed up from the first week, practicing football, trying to figure this whole thing out. It's like, wow, Harvard University, never thought I'd be here, playing football. I mean, this is all kind of like crazy. Like I'm thinking to myself, I'm killing it, you know? Like I'm doing really well. Well, we practiced for a week, and then Sunday morning, wake up, got the day off. I'm rooming with 7 other guys. Wake up, nobody's talking about going to Mass. It's like, well, maybe I don't have to go to Mass today. And I didn't. And I felt pretty bad about it. And then the next week comes around, next Sunday, same thing. Didn't feel quite so badly about it the second time. This was on for a few months, and now I'm busy. I'm playing football. I'm going to classes starting. I'm not going to Bible class. I'm going to other classes. And, you know, but it's like, geez, I mean, I'm looking around. The world's telling me I'm doing pretty good. So about middle of October, my mom comes out to visit. And I meet up there in Harvard Yard. I'm taking her for a tour. And, you know, my mom grew up on a dairy farm in Minnesota. She never thought she'd have a son go to Harvard. In fact, she didn't think it would be this son either, to tell you the truth. I swear, when I got the acceptance, I said, are you sure they got the right Matt Birk? I was like, yeah, I'm sure it's me. I'm the only Matt Birk that lives here. And I'm giving her a tour, and I can see how proud she is. And I end the tour in the middle of Harvard Yard. And I said, Mom, there's Widener Library. Widener Library, at the time, was a big deal. It had the most books of any library in the world. I said, Mom, that's Widener Library. That's where I go and study. Right, that was the first lie I told. And I said, and over here on this side is Memorial Church. And that's where I go to church on Sundays. The second lie I told, right? So I bid her adieu, and I went to football practice, met up with her afterwards for dinner. I said, how was the rest of your day? She goes, oh, I went in that library, it was great. I said, oh yeah, it's awesome, it's real quiet. Get a lot of good studying done in there. She said, yeah, she done in the Memorial Church. I was like, oh, it's beautiful, yeah. She hears music there on Sundays, it's awesome. She said, yeah, that's not a Catholic church. Well, that would have been good to know beforehand. But honestly, I didn't know. I just kind of thought that it's a Memorial Church, I thought it was Catholic. I really didn't know what the difference was between Catholics and Lutherans and Episcopalians and whatever. So, you know, I got read the riot act a little bit there at dinner, but she left, and I just kept not going to church. I'd come home for Christmas or summer, yeah, then I'd go to Mass, but I felt like I was, you know, too busy. I was doing all this other stuff. Besides, I'm a good person. I'm not hurting anybody. I was only living for myself. So, as it turns out, and I'm still not quite sure how it happened, but I ended up getting drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. Right? And I come home, and I mean, I still remember the first day like it was yesterday. I'm getting ready to walk into the Vikings locker room. I grew up in Minnesota. I was a Vikings fan. And I opened the door, and the first 4 guys I see when I walk into the Vikings locker room was Chris Carter, he's in the Hall of Fame, John Randall, he's in the Hall of Fame, Randall McDaniel, he's in the Hall of Fame, and Jeff Christie, who was just the starting center at the time, not in the Hall of Fame, but just making Pro Bowls. I mean, 4 months before this, I was in my dorm room cheering and throwing stuff at the TV, which us Viking fans do, and you know, and now I'm in the same locker room with these guys, like these guys might be my colleagues. This is crazy, right? So I'm thinking, is it unprofessional? what's the policy? Decided that it was, and just kind of went about my business, right? Well, make the team. Gosh, man, I'm back home. I'm like a folk hero kind of, playing for the Vikings, making good money, never had any money before. I was living in my parents' house for a while, and they finally kicked me out. Like, you get your own place. I was like, yeah, you're probably right. I'm not, wasn't a superstar or anything, but I had a hamburger named after me in St. Paul, Minnesota. Still do. Like, as a lineman, I don't know if it gets much bigger than that, right? Like, that's how well I was doing. Everyone's telling me, gosh, you're doing great, Simon, you're doing great. And I go out in the community. There's nothing to go out in the community when you're a football player and do a little bit of good here and there. It's super easy. You're a great guy, you're doing good. So I think I'm doing all this good stuff, but I wasn't going to Mass. I wasn't living my faith. But I still identified with being Catholic. When people ask me, what are you? I said, well, I'm a Catholic. But I wasn't. What happened was I was given the gift of the faith as a child at birth. Fortunate enough to be born to two devout Catholics. But I had not claimed the faith as my own. And that's what we all have to do. All of us cradle Catholics have to do at some point. So I had a roommate with the Vikings. You never heard of him. His name was Corey Withrow. And Corey was a great man. He's from Washington State. He's an evangelical. And I'll back up. What was kind of interesting to me, I knew that football's a spiritual game. Because football's hard. Football it requires discipline and hard work and sacrifice. And there's a lot of times when you're playing football and you think, gosh, I don't know if I can do this. Right? And when we're all encountered with those moments in our lives, what do, right? Whether knowingly or not, we pray. We ask God for help. Or we try to cut a deal with God, Come on, God, just let me make the roster. Just get me through this practice. Come on. I promise I'll do something really good afterwards. And then you don't. But that's kind of where I was at. But I was rooming with this guy, Corey Withrow, and it kind of shocked me as I was going around the locker room those first few days. You look at guys' lockers. A lot of guys have Bibles. And then you come to find out we have a team chaplain with the Vikings. And we got Bible study on Mondays, and we got couple study on Thursdays. And every night in the hotel before games, you always stay in a hotel, whether it's a home game or an away game. They would always have Bible study or players fellowship or whatever they called it. And you get to the hotel like 3, 4 in the afternoon, order room service, watch a movie. Especially linemen, the room service. And we'd have meetings at like 7 o'clock at night. Well, 6:30 was Bible study. Corey would always get up early, 6:20, and grab his Bible and say, hey, you want to go to Bible study? And the first guy he asked me, I was like, no, I'm good. Thinking I'm Catholic, I'm going to Bible study, That's kind of what I thought, I had really no idea what it meant to be Catholic. I just knew I identified with being Catholic. And this goes on for a couple years. And you just get up every time, 6:20, 6:25, hey, you want to go to Bible study? No, proceed respectfully ask. I would respectfully decline. And it was just kind of what we did. And so, life progresses. Now football's going really well for me. Really couldn't be going any better. I became a starter. I signed the biggest contract for a center in the history of the NFL. And then I fell in love, right? And when I got married, I had a drug problem. My wife drugged me to church. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm going back to church. She wants to go to church, which was obviously all good. And then so Corey's like, hey, you want to go to Bible study? And I was like, yeah, I'll go to Bible study. So it was the first week of the season, it's first Bible study of the season, and so it's kind of like, you always have new guys. You get like about a 35% turnover every year in the NFL roster. So, to start a new year, new Bible study, there's new faces. So the team chaplain's like, hey, let's start the year up. Let's go around and what everybody talk about the day that you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. Right? Language that I wasn't really familiar with. So luckily I was last, okay? So we're going around, and every single one of these guys had a date. They had a date in the year Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. There's nothing wrong with that. But it got to me, and I just said, I was born Catholic. So I guess I feel like Jesus Christ has been my Savior since day one. But I feel like every day I have to claim Him as my personal Savior. That's sort of how I looked at it. That's how I articulated the Catholic faith. Well, you can look at it a little bit sideways, but it was all right. It's night before a game, and But I'm talking to the Bible study concludes. I'm talking with the team chaplain afterwards, and comes to find out that he's a fall-away Catholic. And so we start to meet for breakfast once during the week. We kind of have these talks, and to me, it was, for some reason, it was important that I was Catholic, but I didn't know why. And I could sense for him, it was important to him that I saw the flaws in the Catholic faith. So he would kind of test me and pepper me with questions. And I would say, well, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out and I'll come back to it. So by him challenging me, he did not want me to, he didn't want me to be Catholic or stay Catholic or identify as being Catholic. But to me, I thought maybe it was because of my parents or my upbringing or whatever it was. I went on this quest for truth, right? I had to figure out, why is it that I tell people I'm Catholic? Why is it important to me? And the only reason to believe in something is if it's true. So I went and read books, and God put some great older men in my life with great resources, and I went on this quest, and I realized that, the Catholic faith, the faith is perfect, right? I'll never know it all. It's too deep for me, and I've been hit in the head a million times, but I understand that the Catholic Church is the one true church. And it's not entertainment based, it's not consumer driven. The doctrine of the church never changes. It's withstood the test of time. And so I became comfortable being Catholic and armed myself with enough knowledge of the faith to be able to defend it. But it was always kind of shocking to me. Here we are at a Bible study, we're all talking about being Christians, and there was this underlying animosity towards me being a Catholic. Well, that head coach got fired, like all head coaches do eventually in the NFL. We got a new head coach, and he was Catholic. So now we started having Catholic Mass in the hotel night before the games. The rest of the head coaches I played for were Catholic as well, and it worked out well. It was easy, a lot easier, less resistance in practicing my faith. So fast forward towards the end of my career, and one day the phone rings and says, "Yeah, Matt, this is Archbishop Laurie from Baltimore, and I'd like you to come speak at the Maryland March for Life down at the courthouse." So I have this rule, when a priest calls me and asks me to do something, I just say yes. And my wife had been involved in the pro-life movement. I was just sort of semi-supportive husband, I guess, but I hadn't really stepped out at all. And so I was like, okay, great. So this is sort of the first time I think that publicly I was going to really take a stand on an issue that is hard to comprehend, but for some reason it's divisive in our society. And I got to talk for 5 minutes on the steps of the courthouse. I'd never been to a big pro-life rally before. My wife volunteered at some pregnancy centers, but so I was like, all right, what do I do? It was a Monday, so I was like, well, I'll go to Mass. I'd go to Mass and find the answer. So I went to do Mass, and the gospel reading was, "Whatever you do for the least of my brothers and sisters, you do unto me." I was like, perfect. I was like, Ray Charles could see that. I mean, we're talking about the unborn, the least of my brothers. I was like, got it. Like, I'm good. Drive from Baltimore down to Annapolis, about an hour, feeling good. Get there. There's a Mass first. Our bishop's going to celebrate Mass. Same gospel reading at that Mass, right? He gives a homily. He stole my thunder. Stole my material. Now I was like, man, this guy asked me to talk and he steals my material. What the heck? So now I'm nervous. So now we have to walk from the church to the courthouse. I'm thinking, what am I going to say? I'm already a little bit nervous because this is my first time. This is my first time step. I didn't seek this opportunity, And a woman who was kind of unseen. She was the Christian radio station. She was the DJ, and I'm walking with her. And I said, just kind of trying to make small talk. I said, so why are you here? What brought you here? And she said, I'm an abortion survivor. Abortion survivors? I don't know, what does that mean? She said, well, when I was 18, I had an abortion, and it's, it's the worst mistake I ever made, and, realized the lies and the pain and everything. She said, no, I'm a pro-life activist, but I'm a survivor. And I was so moved by her story and the story of hundreds of other women that were there that night that were abortion survivors. I thought, why am I up here talking? Who cares what a football player has to say? I mean, I'm competitive. Back then, I was really competitive, and I'm thinking, if you want to win this war right here, this right here, we got hundreds of women who say it was the worst thing they ever did. I don't see any women who gave birth who says they wish they had an abortion. I said, this is the best testimony anybody can give. Well, it was a powerful night for me, obviously, to say the least. And again, it was something that I didn't ask for, that I sort of, not saying unwillingly, but unenthusiastically agreed to do. And then it was like, wow, this is like, there's something here. I mean, and just sort of, we redoubled our efforts in the pro-life movement, being involved, mostly just through supporting pregnancy centers and offering resources where we could. And so we win the Super Bowl, and President Obama makes that infamous speech about the first sitting president to address Planned Parenthood, and at the end of the speech he says, God bless Planned Parenthood. And 2 days after that happens, I get the invitation in the mail to go to the White House. And I thought, it wasn't like, again, I'm not going to be canonized for saying that, but there was a lot of pride. I mean, I was so upset by that speech, just the ridiculousness of that, of our culture and the attitude towards abortion. I just thought, I'm not going to go see that joker, and I checked no and sent it in. And I remember that day I was working out in the gym trying to lose weight because I retired, and I walked by the TV and I was like, oh, the Ravens are in the White House, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I see my teammates on there, and I was like, oh, that's good, this like they're having a good time. And I was flying out the next day because we were getting our Super Bowl rings. We were having a ring ceremony, so they made it correspond with the White House visit. And later that day, my phone rings, and it's a reporter from the Baltimore Sun. He says, hey, how come you were at the White House? Like, are you mad? Like, you mad the Ravens didn't re-sign me? I was like, I retired. They didn't re-sign me. I retired before they could re-sign me. I was like, no, I'm not mad. I was like, and he's like, well, what do you mean you couldn't make it? Like, come on, what's, and at that point I sort of decided, like, this was 2013, but you can't really run and hide from people anymore, right? So I just said, the reason I wasn't there is, I have 3 daughters, and I have more kids. I don't know how many kids I had at that point, but my 3 oldest are daughters, and they know we're involved in pro-life stuff, and it's just, it doesn't jive with what I'm teaching my kids and in my house. And whatever. Well then, right, everything becomes a story. Everything's got a 24-hour news cycle, so it kind of explodes, and I'm doing interviews on, Fox News, which is great. I'm doing interviews on CNN, not so great. And I just, you kind of take a step back, and I'm still sort of like new to the whole thing of stepping out. And I'm just kind of, you realize, how am I being attacked for standing up for unborn children? Like, it's and I know I'm preaching to the choir. I understand that, but it's just ridiculous. And everything was prefaced. All the negative articles were always prefaced. Well, like, he's a Catholic. Like, that was a bad thing, It was almost like, he's a Catholic, and I could like see in parentheses, so therefore he can't think for himself, like he's just a young football player. And it was amazing, right? And so it's just the anti-Catholic sentiment to me was astounding because, again, where I grew up, it wasn't even a question. And so that whole thing happens, and then also that year I also wrote an editorial in the Baltimore Sun and the Minneapolis Star Tribune defending marriage. They were going to redefine marriage. And of course, that's like the third rail issue. For those of you from New York, the third rail, don't ever touch the third rail. But I guess to me, it's like, and people say bad stuff. Nobody ever says bad stuff to your face. They just put it on Facebook. which isn't, that's not people really saying bad stuff. Well, I guess my point is this, like, at some, we all have our own platform, our own gifts, our own influence. And I think now with the amount of, you can't be anti-anything in the world except anti-Catholic. That's acceptable in society. And so at some point you're going to have to stand up and defend your beliefs, your faith, your church. And so you have to be able to articulate it. As I think of Catholics, I think of us as doers. We're people that live our faith. But in today's day and age, you have to be able, you're going to get into debates and discussions, you have to be able to articulate why you believe what you believe, what God's plan is for children, what God's plan is for marriage, these types of things. So I retired from football, and I'm thinking, like, everything's great. So I do what all retired people do. I moved to Naples. And, like, don't ask, I can't get into details, but I ended up, for logistically, I thought the thing that was going to make our life work was to send my kids to a Baptist school, okay? So we check out this Baptist, and we're like, hey, I don't know anything about Baptists. So I was like, hey, we're Catholic. Is that a problem here? We're like, no, it's no problem. We just teach the Bible. I was like, oh, well, we like the Bible. We put it together, so that's good, we'll take the Bible. Well, it becomes evident real quickly that they got a problem with Catholics. And in fact, it's probably the best thing for my kids' faith, because they would come home and sometimes crying. The teacher said this, and we're wrong, we worship Mary, or we got idols and all this stuff. And it provided so many great teaching moments for my kids about the faith that I never had, because we had, where I grew up, you had statues of Mary, you had other statues, if you didn't do it, you get wrapped on the knuckles. That was the deal. Sister Reno Well, I still remember, so petrified that woman. So kind of going around, and I'm like okay with it. Like I'm sort of, I don't know, I guess I'm not shocked at the anti-Catholic vibe coming from the Baptist. So it's springtime, and at the time she was a third grader, she comes home and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna run track and field. And I was like, that's great, Sid. And I was excited because she was excited, and also, unfortunately, she's kind of built like me. She's kind of got lineman's body. So I was like, hey, good for her. She's gonna run track and field. Like, that's great. Well, she comes home the next day, she goes, oh, Dad, can't do track and field. There's no coach. I was like, well, I'm really not doing a whole lot. I was like, I suppose I could probably coach 3rd and 4th grade track. So I went up there, and the AD is also the football coach, right? So I walk in and I said, hey, I'd like to coach 3rd and 4th grade track. Well, I can see this guy. He's so excited, and I know exactly what he's thinking. He's going to coach track this year, and next year he's going to be coaching football for me in the fall. I'm like, this is going to be awesome, right? I was like, just slow down, Billy. I was like, let's just get this, let's get this track thing figured out. So he gives me the application to coach track at the school. It's like 50 pages long. I'm not kidding. These guys, they do the due diligence, background checks, fingerprints. I'm filling out all this stuff, and I'm getting towards the end of it, and I am fatigued. I'm tired of this. So second to the last page says, write about the day that you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. It's like, man, here's this language again, right? And again, I was annoyed at this point, so I just wrote, I'm Catholic, period. Next page. It said, use the back if necessary. I was like, I'm a Catholic, period. Then you get to the last page finally, right? And it says, initial next to these statements, and by you initially it says that you accept them as being true. So the first one is, I accept the Bible as the final authority on all matters. Now, 10 years before that I would probably just sign it, but that's, Catholic faith does not teach that the Bible is the final authority on matters. The church is the final authority on matters. So I skip that one, I go to the second one, and it says, I will not use alcohol, tobacco, or drugs. Well coached at First Baptist. Sorry, I said the name. And I was like, so I crossed out alcohol and then I signed it. I'm serious. I couldn't go over 2 like So I went and I turned it in to Billy, and he's all fired up. He called the next day and he's like, he's not as excited anymore. He's like, you got to go see the principal. Man, it's not uncommon for me, but so in the principal's office, and sitting there, and he walks in, and no handshake, and it's like, Mr. Birk, what's the difference between you Baptists and us Catholics? Or you Catholics and us Baptists? And I'm thinking to myself, well, our parties are a lot more fun, because we drink. I didn't say that. I was like, I don't really know. I don't know much about Baptists. He said some things and posed some questions that just showed he didn't know a lot about Catholics either. And I was like, we're just trying to coach 3rd and 4th grade track. Like, you think we could set aside some of these differences? And I coached 3rd and 4th grade track that year. We were awesome. The kids had a good time. But it was, again, it's like, it's kind of surprising when you think about it that, here we are in a Christian school and, coming under fire for my Catholic beliefs. And so my message is this, one, prepare yourself. Understand, the art of war, understand who the enemy is. I mean, the enemy is Satan. And I think one of the greatest accomplishments of Satan is he's taken us Christians and divided us into, usually everybody was Catholic. Now we have, 20,000 denominations of Christians in the world. He's pitting us against ourselves. I mean, we all know, I think we can be secure and confident enough in our faith and in our church, knowing that it's solid. It's solid. So we don't need to take most of the anti-Catholic sentiment from other Christians comes from a lack of understanding. Okay? But I mean, to be Catholic, you've got to be tough and you've got to be strong. I don't have to tell you, he says, be bold, be Catholic. You got to be tough, be strong, be Catholic. Because let's face it, nobody's ever left the Catholic Church because it was too easy, right? Because it's easy to live by that doctrine because it's, and you have all the ways that we can practice our faith and receive grace. No one ever left because it was too easy. So you have to be tough and you have to be strong. I look at all the things that are at our disposal. We have the Mass, we have the Eucharist, we have confession, we have adoration. It's like, the goal is to get to heaven, and when my kid asked me one time, if you're not Catholic, can you get to heaven? And I was like, well, yes, you can. But it would be like, as a Catholic, we have all these tools at our disposal. It'd be like we could try to build a house with 100 tools, or you could try to build a house with 3 tools. Which would you rather do? We have all these tools at our disposal. We have to use them. We have to use them. To illustrate that point, so I was drafted in 1998 by the Vikings. Showed up, didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I'll be around saying, Harvard, some of you might have been surprised to learn that Harvard does have a football team. We do. We got uniforms and everything. It's awesome. But I was good at Harvard because I was just bigger and stronger. Everybody else gets to the NFL, everybody's big and strong. And I showed up that first day after I bypassed Chris and those guys and didn't ask for autographs. I went to my locker and there's a playbook sitting there. And for those of you old enough to remember, it was like as thick as an old phone book. What is the offensive playbook? The defensive playbook is just one page. There's just a picture of football that says, go get it, boys. But offense is complicated, right? So I go to this meeting. Well, 1998, for those who aren't Vikings fans, 1998, we set the NFL record for most points ever scored by an offense. I say we, I was on the team, I didn't play, but I was on the bench, passed on Gatorade or whatever. Good job, guys, way to go. Right? That offense was loaded. So I went to the first meeting. It wasn't like we were starting on page 1. I needed football 101. This is like a doctorate level football class. These guys are talking about, breaking up routes and changing the plays, and I'm like, what the heck? But we went out there for the first practice, and I'm running around and trying not to get anybody's way or hurt any of the good players. And we get into a scrimmage, and they put me in the huddle, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope I know whether it's a run or a pass. That's all I wanted to know. So Brad Johnson steps in the huddle. I was like, man, Brad Johnson. Wait till I tell my buddies I'm in the huddle with Brad Johnson. He calls the play and it's a pass. So break the huddle. I knew it was a pass. I come up to the line and there's John Randall. Right? I'm thinking, this is great. So I'm going to lock John Randall down. And no one's going to be make any more jokes about Harvard. I'm going to prove it, I'm here to stay, right? So I'm down on my stance. As an offensive lineman, what you want to do is you want to punch the defensive lineman in his chest. You call it punching with your hands. I was like, man, I'm going to punch John so hard, I'm going to put my hands through his chest, they're going to come out his back. That's how hard I was. Very Christian of me. So, the ball snapped, I come out, and I go, and I punch. I close my eyes, because I was scared. I was so scared. And I didn't feel anything. That's a bad feeling for an offensive lineman. He was right here. Like, how am I not feeling it? Well, I opened my eyes and John's not there anymore. He's like here, on his way to the quarterback. So the first block of my NFL career was a lookout block where he just look out. So John ran by and smacked Brad on the butt as he grew up, ran by him, and Brad got mad, and coaches are mad, yelling at me, and I'm thinking to myself, thank God I got my degree, because I'm not going to last long. So then you go in and you watch the film for practice. So for me, it was like, watching a horror film. You watch it in front of all your teammates. And coach is like, hey, Matt, stick around. So I was like, man, they're going to cut me before lunch. They're not even going to lunch. And I played tackle in college. They started me at tackle, and it was like, we don't think you tackle in the NFL. It's like, yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think you played guard. It's like, yeah. He said, how about center? You ever played center before? I was like, never. So just tell me whatever I got to do. He said, well, first thing you got to learn how to snap the football. So go out there 5 minutes early before the afternoon practice, and the quarterbacks and other centers will meet you out there. You practice snapping the football. So I was like, great. So go out there. Well, went up to lunch first. And I was, I was still enthused about being there, but sort of realized I just didn't put on like double, not secret probation. Like you're going to be a center or nothing. So I'm in the food line, I'm getting my food, and John Randall, he comes walking in. John had just this energy, just endless amount of energy. And he kind of thought he was a professional wrestler too. And so he was always bouncing, and he comes up and he's looking at he peeks at my food, and I'm like, kind of just like this. And I was like, you're a rookie, right? You're just like, just leave me alone. I was like, hey John, how's it going? He looks at me all intense. He says, today at practice, I'm going to take your soul. I believed him. I was like, I've seen him do a lot of things already. I'm proud to do that, right? So, whatever. So I go out there. I'm out there like 20 minutes early. I'm like, all right, talking to myself. I'm like, come on now. We got to figure out this center thing. I'm fired up. 5 minutes before practice, here comes the quarterbacks. Brad. And I was like, oh, I wonder if Brad remembers what happened this morning. He did. We had Randall Cunningham on that team. Randall Cunningham. I mean, I was like, Randall Cunningham was my 5th grade fantasy football quarterback. I was like, Randall Cunningham's on this team? I was like, this is awesome. And for 5 minutes, we just practiced snapping the football, right? You just bend over, put your hand on the ball, quarterback puts his hands underneath you. Takes a little getting used to. After 15 years, not quite sure I got used to it, but can't play tackle or guard, you gotta play center. And for 5 minutes, we just practiced snapping the football. Now, chances are, if you watch football at home or at a stadium, you'll be like, oh my gosh, did you see how the center snapped the ball? It's amazing. How does he do that? It's perfect. It's right in his hands every time, right? No, the only time he knows to snap is when. Yeah, when it's back, right? Like Peyton Manning, first play of the Super Bowl, the Seahawks, the ball goes over his head, out the back of the end zone. Right, every time it's back, always the center's fault, never the quarterback's fault, right? Don't worry, I'm in therapy, I'm almost over it. For 5 minutes, that day and every single day of my 15-year career, we practiced snapping the football. 5 minutes early. So the whistle blows, and then they send the lineman way down into the corner. You don't get to use like a good grass in the nice field. That's for the receivers and running backs, right? You guys get down there in the corner and don't get in the way. And we go down there, we get these things called chutes. All right? If you drive by a high school field, they got chutes, all right? They're like these kind of metal frame structures that you got to get in. You got to get low, and you get your stance, and you fire out. You have to stay low, otherwise if you pop up, you hit your head on the metal bars. It hurts and makes a lot of noise. Not before. It's not cool. And that teaches you to stay low, because in football, low man wins. It's all about leverage. So you practice in the shoots, you're in the shoots, and then it gets real technical, okay? Then they get these 10-foot long boards out. They're 10 feet long and like a foot wide. You straddle them, they put those in the shoots, and you straddle them, and it teaches you have to stay low, but you also have to keep your feet apart so you have a base, because if you get your feet close together, you get knocked over, right? This is the NFL, right? I don't think there's a higher league than the NFL. Right? Every single day, we would practice snapping the football, getting in the shoots, and coming out on the boards, right? That right there is the fundamentals of playing offensive line. It's not fun, not sexy, hard to get excited sometimes about taking snaps and getting in the shoots. But you did it every single day for 15 years, because the fundamentals never, ever change. Right? Now, if I was a quarterback, this talk would be a lot better, but let me put it like this. Tom Brady, okay? A quarterback, to oversimplify it, only has to make 10 throws. Okay, there's 10 throws in the route. The most basic one is a slant route. The guy takes 2 steps, turns, and he throws. I coached 4th grade football this year. We had a slant route in our offense, okay? Every single day, Tom Brady practices throwing slant routes. It doesn't matter that he's done it 10 million times before. What matters is that he's doing it now. So the fundamentals never change. What changes is our attention to them. Right? We think, I got it. All right, I got it. What's next? So you take from that first day when I was out there, fast forward 15 years, every day practice snapping football in the shoots on the board. Fast forward to the last game I played in, the Super Bowl. Right? Super Bowl's a huge deal, right? It doesn't get any bigger than the Super Bowl. They say, oh, you're going to play in the Super Bowl, it's going to change your life, right? Who won the Super Bowl 3 years ago? Yeah, nobody remembers, but they tell you it's a really big deal what you're doing, right? So we get to the Super Bowl, we get out there, all the pomp and circumstance, we got like 2 weeks to get out there, finally you get out there, we get in a huddle called dot right 40 gun. That was the play, the first play ran in the Super Bowl. It's a basic running play. Everybody has it, my 4th grade team had it, okay? Run dot right 40 gun, first play of the Super Bowl. It's just an inside zone running play, everybody just steps a little bit to the right and comes up. So, if you were to take that play, if you had, I don't think we had drones back then, or we weren't using them to film football games, we were using them to bomb people or whatever, but if you had a drone over the field, if you were to video that play, the first play of the Super Bowl, dot right 40 gun, and if you were to have that video, you were to take away the whole stadium and everybody in the stands and everybody on the sidelines and all the other players on the field, and you just left me on the film, and you ran, you know what I was doing? I was practicing, I was snapping the football, I was in the shoots, and I was coming out on the boards. All I was doing was executing the fundamentals that I practiced every single day for the last 15 years. It just so happened to be that it was the Super Bowl, but that's all I was doing, was executing the fundamentals. I mean, sometimes they think as people, and I mean, you look at our faith, and you look at the saints, I mean, they're heroic, right? Like you think, oh, man, and I'm not saying I don't know how to respond. It's, hey, we're going to stone you to death, or whatever. But they did these heroic things. But why were they able to do these heroic things? Because they were masters of the fundamentals. And we have all the fundamentals in our faith. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's about as exciting as having a guy put his hands underneath you and getting in the shoots and coming on board. Maybe there's days where you don't want to do it. But that's how you become great. That's how you become great at football, and that's how we become great at our faith. And that's what's great about the Catholic Church, is we have all of these fundamentals at our disposal to try to master every single day. And you know what? Like in football, nobody's ever played a perfect game. Not even Tom Brady, if you can believe it. He's never played a perfect game. And nobody's ever been. One guy's been perfect, that's it. Nobody's ever been perfect. We have an idea, we have a plan, we think this is how it's going to go in life, in football. You spend all week game planning. These are the defenses they play, this is how they're going to play us, these are the plays we're going to run. And then you go out to the first series and you're like, Who are these guys? We never seen any of this before. And you got to come over the sidelines and you got like 5 minutes to draw a whole new game plan. Right? That's life too. Right? We wake up every day. I wake up every day with the best intentions. Wake up early, read the gospel, do this, read my reflection. It's like, oh, today's going to be a great day, right? And then kid number one gets up and does something that just sets me off or whatever, you know? It happens. What do? Stick to the fundamentals. We can always go back to the fundamentals of our faith. That's what football players do to be the best football players they can become. And that's what we as Catholics need to do to become the best version of ourselves. But we have to anticipate resistance. We have to know that it's out there. And that's why you have to be tough, you have to be strong in order to be Catholic. Thank you very much.